Good morning and welcome to Peace Out, where we are all learning together to peace out, and we are working on it. Hey, I'm working on it every single day. I trust that you are also working on it every single day, because it is a constant thing. It's a constant battle, right? It never really lets up. And we get some brighter spots and some darker spots and some heavier things and some lighter things, some more difficult things, some easier things. But it's this constant battle to remind ourselves that God gave us peace, period. And things come at us. I'm not even gonna tell you the week I've had. It's been one thing after another this week, and several big things and just some difficult things. And it's like every day it's like I have to choose to peace out. I have to choose what God said, what this word said, over what's going on in my brain, what's coming at me from others. And sometimes they're not even saying anything out loud. It's what I think they mean, right? And I get myself in a bind like that a lot. So this morning, as I was working on the Nehemiah study guide, and I was discouraged. I'll just put it that way. I was just really discouraged. I thought, well, you know what? Make myself work 15 minutes. Well, next thing I know, it's been 45 minutes, and I got almost a whole chapter done, right? So I was really so it was good that I pushed through. But getting ourselves to push through is sometimes the hard part, right? To push through to what God has said, or to push through, and then once we do that, it feels better, but man, is it difficult. And so I got stuck in this first part of Nehemiah chapter 4, because here they are, Nehemiah's come back, they've just started building the wall. We've got Sanballat, we've got Tobiah, and all their little friends, right, are standing out there, and they're actually mocking them. They're making fun of what Nehemiah and the Jews are doing. They're saying, and it's basically adult bullying. It really is adult bullying, right? They just didn't have Facebook to post it. It couldn't go viral, right? They could have videoed it and made, I don't know, but anyway. And they were saying, they began to mock them and make fun of them, and they were like, what are these poor, feeble Jews, there's demeaning remarks right there, right, think they are doing? Well, they were rebuilding the wall. You're sitting over there twiddling your thumbs and trying to come up with something, right? And they were angry. Sanballat was angry. It says he actually flew into a rage. He was so mad that they were rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. What a sad story is that? Don't be a Sanballat. Be a Nehemiah, right? And he's like, what do they even think they're doing? They're just so weak. So they're just demeaning. They're just degrading, and they're just like, you're worthless. You have no strength, and they're laughing and acting stupid, like schoolyard bullies, really, even though they're supposed to be adults, right? And then they say things like, do they think they can build a wall in a day if they offer enough sacrifices? They're making fun of worship. They're making fun of their religion. They're making fun of their traditions. And they look at those charred stones. They're pulling them out of the rubbish to use again. They're making fun, going and getting. Well, yeah, they didn't have to go get other stones. They're using the stones that were there that had been knocked over, and they're putting them back in the wall. So they're just pulling them out of the rubbish. They're using them again. How dumb is that? They just go on and on. Then Tobiah joins in, and he says, "Yeah, that stone wall is going to collapse if a fox walks on it." And a fox is a real light animal, right? They're really small, and they're light, and they're fast. So they're just making fun. And I thought, as I was going through this today, and I was working on the study guide for chapter 4, I thought, you know what? Some of that's not too far from what plays in my head, and maybe it's just me. Maybe you don't have this problem, but I tend to get these questions that go through my head, like, why am I working on this? This is dumb. This is not going to go anywhere. Nobody's going to want to read this. Nobody wants to listen to me. Nobody want, what I'm building is not good, and what God's doing through me is, it wants to minimize. And so these statements that Sanballat, Tobiah, and these other guys are saying, they're very common to what the enemy says in our heads half the time, trying to discourage us from trusting God, trying to discourage us from working in the kingdom, trying to discourage us from witnessing. Have you ever witnessed to somebody that walked away and go, well, that was the dumbest thing I ever said? How did I get, because the enemy's putting that in your head. He wants to discredit and discourage you as much as possible. This is not anything new. We've talked about this before. I know I talk about it a lot because it really stands out to me. When David was about to fight Goliath, his older brother said, what are you doing here? Why aren't you taking care of those few sheep? Trying to demean, trying to discourage. You just came to see the battle. You are just so prideful, and you're full of pride, and you're a liar. That's what he told him. And David's like, what did I do? And he goes on with what he's doing. This is a model we need to follow. No matter what the enemy says, the crazy thoughts he puts in our mind, or what circumstances try to press in on us, talk us out of trusting God for peace, grace, mercy, love, righteousness, wisdom, all these things, right? Try to talk us out of trusting God's word. Like, it's not going to work for you. It might work for everybody else. But it's not going to work for you, right? Why are you trusting that? This is dumb. This is little. And that's what Eliab, I'm going to say it, said to David, was trying to say to David to discourage him from doing what he needed to do and take care of Goliath. We see the same thing with Daniel. Daniel was a prince, an administrator, and the king Darius had just promoted a whole bunch of people, and Daniel was one of them, and the other ones got jealous, and their response to the king tells us where their heart was. They were just like Sanballat. They were on the wrong side of the line. They said, Daniel, of course, they did this whole elaborate plot to trick the king, not Daniel. And then Daniel continued with his consistent walk with God. He didn't change a thing he did, just like David didn't change a thing. He just said, okay, what do I get when I take out this giant? Daniel's like, I'm going to go pray anyway. And so the trick was really for the king, all right? And then they go to the king and they go, you know what? Daniel, the slave from Judah, the captive from Judah. Well, he was also an administrator. He was also a prince. He was also in charge. He was a supervisor, but they pulled out way back here. They reach back here and try to find the most demeaning term they can find is to try to put Daniel in where they thought he should be, right? It's like he doesn't belong to be in this position, and they were jealous. Jealousy was driving this, right? And they're trying to put him down to demean him. And of course, then he goes to the lion's den, then he's okay. Then they ended up in the lion's den, which was great, right? But isn't that what the enemy wants to do? Just discourage us. They thought, first off, I think they knew that Daniel wouldn't stop praying. They knew Daniel was a man of character. They knew Daniel would not stop praying just because the king made a law that he couldn't pray to anybody but the king. They knew, because that was a whole plot. They wanted to take him out. They didn't want him to stop praying. They just wanted to take him out. They wanted an excuse, and they made this big elaborate plot. I don't know how the king fell for it, right? But this is a pattern. This is what the enemy does to us. He tries to discourage us. He tries to demean us. He tries to tell us we're not worth it. What we're doing isn't worth it. We're not contributing to the kingdom. It's not big enough. It's not fancy enough. It's not fill in the blank with whatever he puts in your head. He just wants to discourage us. So this morning, what I want to do is encourage you. If he wants to discourage you, you're doing something. If you're in the middle of a fight, it's because you're doing something in the kingdom, even if it doesn't look like it. I mean, these guys in Nehemiah, they were literally going to the rubble, to walls that had been knocked down, and picking up those stones and putting them back in the wall. They didn't go buy new bricks. They didn't go buy anything new. They were using old, broken rocks and piecing them together to make the wall, right? To put it back together. Is that not amazing? Isn't that what our life is about? We got a bunch of broken stuff, and God is putting those broken pieces together, and he's making something beautiful. Don't let the devil talk you out of it. Don't let the enemy or life or circumstances or the things that are going on around you talk you out of the peace God gave you today. Don't let him convince you that God's grace isn't enough in your situation, because God told Paul, my grace is sufficient no matter what. No matter what. Then Paul stopped arguing, and he said, you know what? I can glory in my weaknesses, because when I'm weak, he's strong. He turned it around. Can we turn that narrative around and not listen to it anymore and say, God, you know what? Let's get in here. Tell me what you said about me. What did God say about me? I don't care what the enemy says about me. But I want to, and I got these crazy things that go through my mind that try to say how insignificant, all these negative things that can come. And we got to turn those around and go, but God made me significant. I was significant, and and important enough for him to go to the cross. I was important enough, we were important enough that he planned the cross before Adam and Eve even fell because he wanted to make sure we could get back to him. That's the whole point, and that's why our enemy wants to discourage us, because he doesn't want us to find out what a loving God is. He doesn't want us to find out how that God knew us before we were formed in the womb. We talked about that earlier this week, that God has a plan for us. He wants to discourage us so that we don't do that plan, but he cannot interrupt the plan of God. He's not big enough or bad enough, ugly enough to stop what God wants to do in your life. So stop fighting and just submit to God and go, you know what, God, I know you got me covered. I need wisdom. We ask wisdom, we get it. I need direction. I want to know what I get when I take out this giant, because I know that you're going to empower the stone, the rock that the builders rejected, and it's going to take out the enemy before me. We're not going to lose, you guys. We can't lose. So don't listen. Don't fall into discouragement. Don't listen to those crazy things that go through your head. Don't listen to the spiritual bullies that's out there, right? Because that's all the enemy is. He has no power. Most bullies lack self-significance. Most bullies don't understand their own selves. They have a very bad self-image, so they're trying to put other people's down so they look better. That's all our enemy wants to do. If he can talk us into failing or not accepting what God gave us, or not walking in what God gave us, then he thinks he looks better. He's still ugly. He's still dumb. He's still lost. He can't win. There is nowhere that there's no playing field that he's going to win, even if we mess up. Even if we fail, even if we forget to trust God, even if we fall out of faith, so to speak, God already covered us. The enemy can't make God take that back. He has no chance at winning. He just wants to discourage us, because like a bully, he ain't got nothing, and he wants to make sure you ain't got nothing either. And God says, just don't listen. Just don't listen to these enemies. Right? And it's interesting because Nehemiah prayed. He said, don't ignore their guilt. Don't blot out their sins. What kind of Christian is that? Well, it was Old Testament, right? Don't blot out their sins, for they have provoked you to anger here in the presence of these builders. And he said, may they fall back on their own heads. That sounds serious, right? And may they themselves become captives in a foreign land. He's like, they don't understand where we come from. They don't understand because that's what Nehemiah has lived his whole life, as a captive in a foreign land, and he's coming back and trying to restore. And like I said earlier, everything Nehemiah did was a prophetic statement about Jesus, who was next on the scene. John the Baptist and Jesus was the next up. He was setting the stage for time to line up with eternity. That's amazing to me. And Sanballat, Tobiah, they don't even know. They're just trying to discourage them because they don't like them. They're not going to win. The enemy will never win. He's already been defeated. Why are you listening to him? Why am I listening to him? I'll put it on me, right? Today I want to just remind us of what God said about us. We're valuable. He loves us. He's intimately acquainted with all our ways. He knows when we stand up, when we sit down. He knows when we listen to those lies and when we put them off. And it's a choice. We have to choose to believe what God believes about us. That's where I'm going to sit today. That's where I'm going to put my meditation, and my thought is what God said about me today. I'm not going to worry about anything else. Don't be discouraged. What is it? Paul said, don't be discouraged in well-doing. You will reap what you sow. Keep sowing God's word. Keep sowing his peace. Keep sowing righteousness, and keep sowing into the kingdom, and we will reap what we sow. And the enemy is just going to be mad anyway. He's never going to win. We don't even have to pay him any attention. We don't even have to act like he's in the room. Just ignore him and trust what God said, and peace out. Peace out, you guys. Have a great day. I'll see you again Monday morning.